Hi, my name is Jody Lamb and I'm with Big G Express and Manager of Marketing and Communications. Welcome to Big G. We're so glad you're here. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about our employee stock ownership plan, the fact that we're 100% employee owned, what that means for Big G and what that means for you and possibly for your retirement in the future. When we talk about employee ownership at Big G, it's interesting to find out why Big G became employee owned. And it all started back in 1995 when brothers Pat Marsh and Jack Marsh founded Big G Express. Mr. Pat owned Goggin Truck Line, the oldest LTL carrier in the state of Tennessee at the time. And they started Big G as a truckload portion to meet customer needs. So fast forward a little bit, from 95 when Big G started to 98, and Mr. Pat and his business partner at the time decided to sell Goggin to Old Dominion. Big G Express continued to grow, and in 2009 they had gone from the 10 trucks in 95 to about 400 in 2009. At that point, we had two other minority owners in the business, Patty Corley and David Nolan. And the four owners were looking at a way to preserve Big G and to continue into the future. And our accounting firm, they're out of Indianapolis, KSM, they have a lot of transportation clients, but they are also an employee-owned company themselves and have an ESOP and do ESOP advisory. So KSM advisors had mentioned to Big G ownership group about an ESOP and kind of gave them the idea to look into becoming an ESOP. And they did their research, talked to other ESOP companies, and knew it was something that they wanted to pursue. So in 2009, we became 100% employee-owned through an employee stock ownership plan, also known as an ESOP. So what is an ESOP exactly? An ESOP is a qualified retirement plan. It's regulated by U.S. government. We follow lots of rules and regulations by the Department of Labor and IRS. But the ESOP allows for employees of a company to become beneficial owners of the stock of the company. And it is a free retirement to the employees of Big G Express. No money out of your pocket. We put shares into your account for your retirement based on your compensation and years of service. So when you hear free retirement, and we talked about the fact that the owners didn't sell to another carrier but sold to the ESOP instead, then how does that work? It sounds a little too good to be true. How do the owners get their money out of the company, and how does that all work? So what an ESOP allows is for a trust to be formed. So we have the ESOP trust that holds the shares of the company. And in our case, as in a lot of cases with ESOP companies, we were able to borrow the money to pay for the shares. So we pay the owners for the shares through a loan. You have to be a pretty stable company financially and prove that you can pay that loan off in the future. So our ESOP loan is a 20-year loan. And we've been paying that off now for almost 10 years, and 2019 will be 10 years into the plan. And each year that Big G makes profits, we're taking profits and paying off the loan, and that's what releases the shares to the employees. So that's good news to the new employees coming in, is that we still have over 50% of the shares in the ESOP trust, because we're almost halfway through paying off that 20-year loan. And we've just released just shy of 50% of the shares. So we still have lots of shares to divide out among the employees, and you're not waiting on people to retire to be able to get those shares. Each year, a contribution is made to the ESOP, and that pays off the ESOP trust loan, and then shares are allocated to individual participants based on compensation and years of service. So you have shares in your account. What does that mean? How much are those shares worth? Well, we are not publicly traded. We're not out on the stock market with a different price every day. Big G Express is still privately held, and we have a valuation once a year by an independent valuation firm. They're looking at the fair market value of Big G Express. What would a willing buyer pay for Big G Express at that given time? So if you think about, if you have millions of dollars sitting around, you're looking to buy a trucking company, what do you want to know about that trucking company to decide how much you're willing to pay? You want to know how profitable they are, what their projections for growth are in the future, maybe the risk involved, CSA scores, driver retention, their customer contracts and customer base. All those things factor into our valuation. One of the biggest things is the fact that we're profitable and making money and project to make money in the future for future growth. There are some things that we can't control that go into our valuation. There are publicly traded companies and how their stock price has been doing. That affects our stock price. Also, government regulations, different tax reforms may affect our stock price. But altogether, once a year, annually, we have that valuation from our third-party valuation, independent valuation firm, and that determines how much your stock that's in your account is worth that year. Big G's stock price started off at $5.88 a share in 2009 and was up to $44.76 in 2017. We've seen some great growth over the years, and the stock price has continually gone up. That's not to say that every year it will go up. There will be years that it may go down. Hopefully over time, just like in the stock market, there are ups and downs, but over time it would go up. All right, so we've talked about putting stock into your account and how it's valued, but what does that really mean for you as a driver? So we have some examples of some real driver accounts and what their account balances have looked like over the last 4 years or so. And just to let you know, like at the end of 2017, we had 26 drivers who had over $90,000 in their ESOP account. So real money in real people's accounts, it's great stuff. At the end of 2017, we had 220 drivers that were fully vested. They'd been here for the 3 years to be vested, and their average account balance was over $36,000. So just to give you an example of some of the driver accounts and what they look like at the end of 2017 and over the past 4 years, how driver accounts have grown. We had a driver who was hired in April of 2013. Their 2014 balance, the first statement they got, was around $3,800. Their second statement was $10,400. Their third statement, $19,000, and their 2017 balance was over $25,000. March 2010 hire date, this driver started off in 2014 with $22,000. It went to $36,000, $51,000, and in 2017 was up to $59,000. Another example is a driver who was hired in August 2004. Their 2014 balance was $48,000. Then it went up to $73,000, $95,000, and in 2017 was up to $106,000. So you can see how it kind of snowballs over time. The longer you're here, the more shares you get, and as our stock price has gone up as well, those shares are worth more. So a real significant account balance for those who stick around and put their time in here at Big G Express. We also have paid out some balances to retirees and those who have separated from Big G Express. And those balances just over the last few years have really gotten higher. We had one example, a driver who left in 2015. He was 70 years old. He had been with Big G for a long time, and his balance was in the 80,000s, low 80s. He got his lump sum at the end of 2016 because he was over age 65. And I said, well, do you want me to tell you what it would have been if he had worked one day into 2016 and been paid on the 2016 stock price? And his balance would have gone up over $12,000. Now, of course, hindsight's 20/20, but that's just to show you an example of what one extra year of working at Big G Express might be. So what does working for an employee-owned company really mean? You're not going to come in necessarily and, hey, I'm an employee owner, I want to fire my dispatcher, they stink. It doesn't really work like that. We don't have 750 employees just doing whatever they want each day. An ESOP is a beneficial ownership of the shares of the company. And while we're not making the decisions every day that exactly how we want to do things from day to day, we are part of something bigger, and we do benefit from the success of the company. And we have great faith in the leaders of this company and the managers who are working day to day, looking at the long-term goals and strategically how we're going to grow as a company. And we've seen it in the results of our stock price each year. We've seen the growth. We've seen our share value go up. So if the drivers aren't driving and getting the miles, then we as a company aren't making the money. So we're here to help everybody. The support team, the office staff, we want to help the drivers as much as possible. Be efficient, get the miles that they need, and get paid. Because in the end, it helps us succeed as a company, and we're all in this together. We're all shareholders. We're all benefiting from the success of Big G Express.